You think a rifle in a bunker will save you when the dead start walking? Wrong. The most valuable item in your backpack will be your smartphone. More specifically, what's inside it. A neural network on your phone can replace a doctor, a farmer, an engineer, and a translator all at once. One person with a charged laptop is worth 10 survivalists in tactical vests. But that same machine will bury you faster than any horde. Today we're breaking down 9 ways artificial intelligence will pull you out of hell, and 3 ways it'll absolutely drag you into the grave. The most dangerous one is at the end. It applies to every single person who's ever blindly trusted ChatGPT. Let's go. Way 1. The Pocket Professor on a flash drive. 88% of Jamestown colonists died in a single winter. They had an entire continent of fertile land. The only thing they didn't have was knowledge. Now, imagine that knowledge fits in your back pocket. A local language model on an old laptop. Download Llama or Mistral with 7 billion parameters right now. Drop it on a solid-state drive, hook it up to a solar panel, and get yourself a pocket expert on every question humanity has ever asked. How to treat pneumonia without antibiotics, how to grow potatoes without fertilizer, how to repair a generator, how to stitch a wound. No internet, no cloud, no $20 monthly subscription, 20 watts of power and 30 gigabytes of memory. This is your insurance policy for the first winter. Download the model today. Tomorrow, while your neighbor is burning his furniture to stay warm, you'll be asking your laptop for a recipe for soap made from ash. Sounds rock solid. But what if you need that knowledge right now, not buried in a laptop? What if a red streak is already crawling up your arm? Way 2. The doctor in your phone who can't walk out the gate. Remember Denise from The Walking Dead, the community's only doctor, who insisted on going outside the wall and caught an arrow in the eye for it? After she died, no one in the group could do anything more advanced than iodine and a Band-Aid. Now imagine a doctor who's always with you, and nobody can shoot her. A microscopic cut on your hand. 2 days later, a red streak is crawling up your forearm. That's sepsis. Without antibiotics, you're dead in a week. A normal person catches this way too late. A neural network trained on millions of medical images sees the infection from a single photo. Diagnostic accuracy of 80 to 90%. Used to take a doctor with 10 years of training to spot it. Now your phone does it in 2 seconds. In a world where a paper cut becomes a death sentence, that capability is worth more than a crate of ammo. And here's where most people screw up. They think the main skill in an apocalypse is shooting. Actually, the main skill is eating something other than canned beans. And here's where AI does what a human couldn't master in 10 years. Way 3. The botanist who saves you from your own lunch. Wild carrot and hemlock look almost identical. Mix them up and you're dead in 6 hours. One pretty little salad and your group is short one person. 70 to 80% of wild plants are poisonous or inedible. It used to take years of practice and a botany atlas the size of a brick. Now apps like PlantNet or Seek identify a species from a photo in 1 second. Accuracy above 90%. Point your camera at a bush, get an answer, is this edible or is this your last meal? But here's the catch most people miss. These apps only work offline if you've preloaded the database. Do it now. Download the regional plant database for your zone. Tomorrow might be too late. And this applies to every app on your phone without prep. They're just pretty pictures on a black screen. Okay, you've confirmed it's edible. But what happens when there's a guy standing next to you screaming and waving a knife and you don't understand a word he's saying? Way 4. The translator who stops a war before it starts. When governments fall, what's left is scattered groups. Some of them are migrants, refugees, people who simply don't speak your language. Waving your hands and smiling is a great way to get shot in at least 3 different countries. Local translation models work in real time without internet, Whisper for live speech recognition, small text translators. This isn't a tourist toy for ordering tapas in Barcelona. This is the difference between an ally who shares his water and a corpse who tried to communicate with hand gestures and got read as a threat. One phone in that situation is worth more than a rifle. Because a rifle starts wars, a translator ends them. All right, you've made peace, but there'll be nothing left to negotiate over if your group runs out of food. And here's where things get really interesting. Way 5. The Apocalypse Accountant. How many calories does your group of 8 need to make it to spring? When will the canned food run out at your current consumption rate? What if winter hits harder than usual? What if 2 people get sick and can't work the field? A human calculates this slowly and with errors, especially when there's screaming, gunfire, and crying kids around them. AI gives you the exact projection in seconds. Punch in supplies, consumption, climate, mouths to feed, out comes the precise date your group starts starving. Knowing that date, you have time to act. Not knowing it, you discover the famine 3 days before it kills the weakest one. This is the invisible work nobody puts in movies. Nobody films a cool scene where Rick Grimes sits over a calculator with a spreadsheet. And that's a shame. Because those spreadsheets are exactly what decides who sees spring. And since we're talking about precision, let's talk about something that never sleeps. Way 6. The sentry who doesn't blink. In The Walking Dead, sentries fell asleep, got distracted, read books, stared at the sky. One missed sound and entire communities died. Dale stood on a watchtower and somehow magically failed to notice 100 zombies approaching. Failed to notice. 100 of them. Very convenient for the script, completely unrealistic in real life. An old smartphone with a camera and a motion detection app doesn't sleep. Doesn't blink. Doesn't wander off to take a leak at the worst possible moment. Hook it up to bells, to a radio, to anything. The camera sees a human silhouette, sees a body with no thermal signature, meaning a corpse, triggers the alarm. One phone replaces 2 sentries who could be growing food or fixing the wall instead of staring into the dark at 3 in the morning. But that's not even the biggest problem. The biggest problem is when you're about to attack someone else's compound. And this is exactly where Rick Grimes face planted. Way 7. The scout you can't wound? Before you storm someone else's base, you need to know everything. How many people, what weapons, how many exits, where they sleep, when the guard rotation changes. Rick Grimes skipped reconnaissance and lost Glenn and Abraham. If he'd had a $200 drone, those 2 would still be alive. A cheap drone with AI navigation returns to base automatically even when it loses signal, films enemy positions from above, counts figures, marks firing positions. You plan the assault without risking a single person. This is the tactical gap that separates a group surviving into year 2 from a group that disappears in one night under a baseball bat. Now for the part nobody talks about, because it doesn't sound cool. Not on the movie poster, not in the trailer, but it's exactly what breaks most survivors. Way 8. The therapist in your pocket. 98% of soldiers become psychiatric casualties after 60 days of continuous combat. In the death camps, observers documented a state where people simply stopped wanting to live. Lay down on the bunk and died. Not from hunger, not from disease, from no longer seeing a point. This isn't weakness. This is neurobiology. The brain can't sustain endless threat. An AI chatbot won't replace a real therapist. But it gives you one thing, a conversation partner. At 3 in the morning, when your wife isn't waking up because she's exhausted, and you can't close your eyes because you keep seeing your dead friend's face, the neural network will talk to you. Structured dialogue, cognitive therapy exercises, breathing techniques. A small model on your phone at night will save the person who would otherwise curl up in a corner and give up. This isn't magic. It's just the basic fact that humans need to talk to someone to stay human. And the last upside, the one you didn't even consider, the one that kills half of all survivors in the first month. Way 9, the lab tech who tells you what you're drinking. Cholera kills faster than zombies. Yemen during its civil war, 2.5 million infections. Haiti after the earthquake, 473,000 cases and 6,000 deaths. From water that looked completely normal. A phone camera plus a trained model can identify water turbidity, signs of algal bloom, chemical contamination by color and texture. It's not a lab, obviously. Nobody's promising molecular analysis in 5 seconds, but it's 10 times better than guessing with your gut. The same logic works for soil assessing planting viability from a photo and a basic site description. The ability to say, do not drink this water, is 1 life saved per week. Now for what you stuck around for. 3 ways AI will kill you faster than any horde. And the first one is the most insidious because the machine will smile right at your face while you drink the poison. Downside 1. The confident liar with honest eyes. AI confidently says things that aren't true. This is a documented fact, not a conspiracy theory. Ask a model which mushrooms are safe. It might invent a species that doesn't exist and describe it so convincingly, with a Latin name and everything, that you'll believe it and go pick some. Ask the dose of aspirin for a child. It'll give you a number that's off by a factor of 2, and it'll sound like a Harvard professor while doing it. In normal life, you Google it and double check. In an apocalypse, there's no internet. You're trusting one model. And that kills faster than any zombie. The rule is simple. Never trust AI on anything where the error costs a life. Medicine, poisonous plants, dosages, chemistry cross-check, only against paper sources. Save offline copies of Wikipedia, medical reference books, the USDA plant database, print the key tables. Paper doesn't hallucinate. Okay, that trap we've handled. But there's a worse one. You're building it for yourself right now every time you open ChatGPT. Downside 2, real-time brain atrophy. If you get used to AI solving everything, you'll forget how to think. This isn't a scare story. It's already happening. Students forgot how to write essays. Programmers forgot how to read other people's code. Drivers forgot how to navigate without GPS. Now, Picture all that in an apocalypse. The battery dies, the solar panel breaks, the laptop falls off a truck, you're alone, with the habit of asking the machine and none of your own reflexes. Everyone who learns only through a neural network is racking up debt. That debt has to be paid the moment the screen goes dark for good. Use AI as an assistant, not a crutch. Learn to read a map without GPS. Learn to identify plants without an app. Learn to stitch wounds with your own hands, on a piece of pork and some thread. The neural network is a backup system, not the primary one. Whoever relies only on technology loses to whoever knows how to use their hands. And now the main one. The most underrated way your own laptop will sell you out. Downside 3, the beacon for raiders. A local model needs power. A laptop with a graphics card draws between 100 and 300 watts. That's the sound of fans and the total silence of a post-apocalyptic night. That's a thermal signature any cheap $200 thermal scope can pick up. That's batteries charging. That's LED indicators glowing in your window, which, in a world with no streetlights, light up like a harbor beacon. Remember how far away you can hear a household generator? A mile in dead silence. Your AI server is the same kind of invitation to raiders. The signal, there's electricity here, which means there are resources here, which means it's worth coming over. Worse than that, if somebody finds your laptop, they get the full history of your queries, where you live, how many of you there are, what you're hiding, what your weaknesses are, what medications you're searching for, because you're running out of them. A local AI is a full database on you and your group, packed into one box with a handle. Encrypt the drive. Only run the model in a secured space, never leave the laptop unattended, and think twice before asking the machine anything that shouldn't end up in someone else's hands. Here's the bottom line. In an apocalypse, the strongest doesn't win. Neither does the best armed. Neither does the most cautious. The most informed wins. AI is the compressed knowledge of all of humanity in a box the size of a book. Use it, but never let it think for you. The machine will eventually shut off. You're the one who has to keep going. If this video was useful, hit like and subscribe. The next one will be even better.